The PS5 Pro is getting expensive, and it made one question way more important here. Is this console actually worth buying in 2026? So, there's been a lot of rumors about Sony releasing the next big thing, which is the PlayStation 6. And to be honest, I still feel skeptical about this whole thing. Now, if you take a look at the amount of years the PS5 has been around, you'd say it makes sense for Sony to release a new console. But in reality, games haven't really taken advantage yet of what the PS5 can actually do. At least that's what I think. So the PS5 Pro was released in late 2024, and it is now that we're starting to see more and more developers taking advantage of its power. But to the average consumer, the improvements aren't anything mind-blowing, if you get what I mean. So I spent about 6 months with the PS5 Pro to see if it actually makes a difference and if it's worth the extra money. But first, let's take a closer look at what the best console on the market today has to offer. Compared to the base PS5, the PS5 Pro is built a bit smaller and feels lighter. Instead of 825GB of storage that you get on the base PS5, you get a full 2TB of storage on the Pro, which is very convenient. You get a much stronger GPU offering stable 4K gaming, higher frame rates, and more detailed graphics. You get better ray tracing, making reflections, shadows, and lighting more realistic, and AI upscaling which is improving with every update Sony releases. The Pro doesn't come with a disc drive, which isn't that big of a deal to me personally, but if you really care about physical games, you do get the option to purchase a disc drive separately. As of today, the PS5 Pro comes in at $750, which will get increased to $900 on April 2nd. If by then you add a disc drive, you're looking at nearly $1,000 total. So I want to take a quick look at the history of Sony's console releases. You see, back then, when companies introduced new consoles, the differences between the generations were huge. I remember going from a PS1 to a PS2, where you saw a significant difference in graphics quality between the two. Same goes for the transition between the PS2 to the PS3. Games started looking way better through the years. Then we went from the PS3 to the PS4, and it was at the release of the PS5 where I didn't really notice a big jump in graphics quality, but more in speed and convenience, the overall user experience. Now, don't get me wrong, the PS5 is still a worthy upgrade from the PS4. Images started getting sharper, developers added better lighting and reflections, trying to improve realism. And the speed has gotten significantly better. Faster loading times, switching between games even got faster. The improvements were there, but it's gotten less noticeable, at least for the average consumer. And it made me wonder, if Sony releases a PS6, what would be the next big thing? What would be the next improvement? Because we basically got it all. If we're just getting better resolution, better storage, I don't see why we wouldn't just add those upgrades to the latest PS5. Now, I will say, my experience with the PS5 Pro has been excellent so far. It really felt like I had the latest and greatest piece of technology. Games looked awesome on a big screen. Everything felt smooth and faster. I could barely hear the fan noise, and I didn't need to worry about storage. I downloaded as many games as I could, and the 2TB of storage still didn't fill up. It was more than enough. The system runs overall very stable. I did not notice any overheating or any drop in performance throughout my gaming sessions. It all felt very good. However, I will say the PS5 Pro isn't for everyone. It's for those who really care about the small details, the ones who really care about convenience and having the latest and greatest piece of technology out there. It's made for enthusiasts who really value the best performance today's technology has to offer. And in reality, the PS5 by itself is already a very capable machine, and I'm talking about the original here, the base PS5. Again, for everyday use, especially when you don't have a 4K TV with specs like an OLED panel or 120Hz refresh rate, between the base PS5 and the PS5 Pro, you won't notice a big difference. I've used the base PS5 in the past and it doesn't really feel that much different. The base PS5 still feels fast enough and is still capable of running the latest and greatest games with ease. I would say the PS5 Pro is a much more polished system. Now, with the latest PSSR update, which is exclusively available on the PS5 Pro, things start to get a bit more interesting. You get more limits pushed out of the PS5. PSSR is, in simple terms, Sony's AI upscaling. This AI upscaling is super beneficial when playing games on bigger screens, delivering consistent performance in terms of frame rates, resolution, and improved ray tracing. PSSR is basically Sony's smart way of making games look sharper without making the console work as hard as it's supposed to. Instead of a game running at full 4K, which is heavy and can slow down performance, the game will render at a lower resolution. Then PSSR steps in and fills in the missing details and outputs something that looks very close to true 4K, keeping consistent higher frame rates. Now this is cool and all, but not all games are supported yet. The good thing is that more and more games are starting to make use of this technology. We've already seen it in Resident Evil Requiem, Crimson Desert, and many more games listed using this technology. And we're not stopping there. Newer games will make use of this technology, even GTA 6, which I'm pretty excited about. So some of you seem to have a problem with the fact that the PS5 Pro does not include a disk drive. But if I'm being honest, I do think this is the right decision from Sony. Now, I do get that using physical games does come with some benefits, and if you only use physical discs, I can respect that. But I've owned the disc version of the original PS5. And the disk drive was something I rarely ever used. But if you're deciding whether to buy a disk drive or not, I would say it all depends on you. They both have their pros and cons. The question you should ask yourself is, which con am I comfortable dealing with? Buying physical games means you can resell them, borrow them to a friend, and you get to keep them forever. Now, some of the cons of having physical games are you'd have to swap a disc every time you decide to play another game. The disc can get scratched and damaged, and I wouldn't say physical games are the cheaper options anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still get them cheaper when you buy secondhand. But from my experience, companies nowadays price their digital games way better with deals and discounts. Sometimes they even give them away for free, and in some cases, they're most likely included in Sony's game catalog if you're a subscribing member. But again, I do think both options are solid. It depends on what you like. If you really like collecting and reselling, buy physical games. If you value speed, convenience, switch between games a lot, or you prefer a clean and minimalist setup, digital is the way to go. At the end of the day, it all comes down to choice. Sony lets you decide whether you want a disk drive or not. Yes, it costs extra, but at least they didn't remove it completely. Now, if you want to take full advantage of the PS5 Pro, it wouldn't make sense to just use a regular 4K TV or monitor. If you're going for the Pro, you need a very good display, at least a 120Hz supported TV or monitor. Otherwise, you're better off with a regular PS5. So, is the PS5 Pro worth the money, and should you buy the PS5 Pro now or wait for the PS6? My answer is don't wait. Even if the PS6 gets announced, I don't think it'll come within the next 2 to 3 years. The PS5 Pro hasn't been released long ago, so I expect it to stick around a bit longer. Sony's even going the extra mile to keep improving its software, because at the end of the day, the biggest downside isn't the hardware, but the game support. Most games haven't really unlocked the Pro's full potential yet, and I feel that now is the time developers are starting to do that. We're just getting closer and closer. What the PS5 Pro offers here is still top tier. It's the kind of performance that will hold up for years, so waiting might not make much sense when you could just be enjoying it right now. That said, if you're more of a casual gamer and don't really care about higher frame rates or slightly improved visuals, which most people won't really notice, you're better off saving money and going for the base PS5 instead. In terms of price, $900 is still justifiable. You're getting solid consistent 4K performance even on bigger screens, something a $1,000 gaming PC usually can't match today. So I would say the PS5 Pro is definitely worth it. But yeah, what do you think about the PS5 Pro? Are you skipping this one for the PS6? Drop it down in the comments. And as always, like and subscribe for more.